Welcome back to the Hive, everybody. We appreciate you for joining us. We have a really great show tonight, and we have a special guest. But first, if you enjoy the show, if you enjoy Speedway, please consider subscribing if you get value out of the show and liking the show. You're going to want to like this show. And tonight we have a really special guest. He was a hot rider in the 70s and 80s, and he's just a great guy. He's going to tell us a little bit about his Speedway story, how he got into Speedway. And he was a really good rider. He was a hard charger. He was definitely a hard charger, and he was number 12, and that is Mr. Steve Columbo.
Guys, how are y'all? I'm still here.
Hi, Steve.
Hey, Brian, how are you, buddy?
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
I'm plugging along.
Doing
Still here.
great. And so what are you doing nowadays?
Well, I live up in Half Moon Bay, California, up by San Francisco. I'm retired. Missing getting sideways. That's definitely for sure. It's a shame we get old. I miss. I
We
miss
only
Costa
get good
Mesa. I
involved.
miss. I miss seeing the stands packed.
Yeah.
I miss
Oh, for sure.
I miss all the riders. I wish we were a lot closer back in the day, but we all had egos and we were all, competitors and we never, got really close. I'm closer to all the guys today than I were back when we were riding together. And it's a shame, but yeah, I like everybody today and so many guys are gone and I miss them all.
Oh, for sure. Who were some of the guys you hung out with when you were racing?
Oh, Mark Cherf, Guy Watterson, a little bit of Bruce Penhall, a fellow LA Sprocket, Scott Sivage, Kelly Moran and Danny Becker. Um, those guys were, you know, my kind of guys. We had the more free and happy-go-lucky attitudes in Speedway. So many of the guys had two wheels in their blood, and they lived and died, Speedway. I was more of a happy-go-lucky, live by just natural talent, and that's how I approached it. Um, a lot of the guys kind of like were just so resentful that I was happy-go-lucky, but that was what motivated me. I just let my natural talent, take me to where I needed to go. And the most proud I was about Speedway is I never hurt anybody. Nobody ever got hurt by any craziness I did out on the track. And I like to think that most riders trusted me out there because I wasn't a nut.
No, you weren't a nut. You were solid and you were smooth. You really knew how to ride that speedway bike. That's the first thing I always remembered about you is you were a hard charger and you rode smooth.
you know, for some reason, I in the beginning I never thought I would be good. Um, just one day, when I put my leg over the bike, me and my bike became one. Um, I got. I'm going to say that. Let's just say that there's 13 steps to becoming a great speedway rider. I like to think I reached the 11th step. A Bruce Penhall was the 13th step. He had two wheels in his blood. I like to think I almost reached that pinnacle on just natural ability. If I would have applied myself a little bit more, who knows where I could have achieved. Looking back, I wish I would have put more into it, but who knows? We'll never know. But I'm I loved what I did. It was a time of our lives, and so many of the guys. There were so many different aspects of riders from so many walks of life. That's what was special about Speedway. So many different walks of life of guys riding Speedway, and so many guys with different types of equipment trying to get into speed with so many guys with the best equipment and the guys with the worst equipment trying to compete with the best and the worst, and looking back watching the guys try to make it is was special now to watch it happen.
Exactly. What year did you start racing Speedway, Steve?
1974. I'm old. It seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah. What got you into Speedway, anyways?
Well, Mark Scherf and me went to school together. He hung out with Bruce Penhall a little bit more in the beginning, and then we were. And my dad said to me, he goes, he's one that took most riders did. Their fathers most likely took their kids to Speedway, and he said to me one day, Mark and Bruce and Guy were at my house, and my father said, he goes, "Would you want to do that?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd do that." And the next day I came home and there was a Speedway bike in my garage. He went to
Cool.
Mark, and Mark hooked up with my dad, and they bought one of Bruce's Speedway bikes, one with the blue nickel plated blue Speedway bike. And we started going to OCIR together, and they kind of made fun of me for a while, and just one day we were all out there, Jim Fishback and Bruce and Guy and Mark and all of us and a few other guys, and even Dennis Segalis. He was 13, and I just went into the corner one day and it was there, and riding OCIR to practice, and the second division track on Wednesday nights, and Indian Dunes, miss Indian Dunes. Just those places made me, and then being picked up in '76 with the LA Sprockets, and having Mike Bass, mentor us. And I was a, I like in my own mind, like I was a great gator, and that helped a lot, of course, in Speedway to be a good gator, and just through years of it just being natural for me, luckily, um, I became a Division I good rider, and I stuck with it for 14, 15 years, and it was fun. I had the time of my life. And Speedway back in the 70s and early 80s, it was a big deal. I mean, it was, the stands were sold out every night. You made a heck of a lot of money to win a main event. You made $1,500. I mean, you made a living. And the let's face it, the place was packed full of the best looking women in Orange County. You were kind of like a little bit of a star in Orange County, and as a 16, 17, 18-year-old boy, or it was a huge deal. So that didn't hurt either, to have that little bit of stardom and fantastic money that young and in that era. We were a product of our environment back then, and that was a great environment. So we milked it, a lot of us. And we were
Yeah, you
picking up
guys did
fantastic
great. And
sponsors.
that was, I tried to explain, yeah, what kind of sponsors did you have back then? Who were your sponsors?
Well, I had Playgirl magazine. I had Garden Grove Dots and Cars along with Mike Bass. I had my father, who was huge. His salon, which was the hair factory, who was huge. In the basics, Bell helmets, Champion spark plugs, NGK, Bel-Ray oil, Castrol oil. Um, so a lot of the good ones, Ron McGriming and everybody. I never spent a dime on Speedway and Pirelli tires and Collins Automotive. So I never spent money. I actually made money riding Speedway. At 17, 18 years old, I was making, $30,000 a year. Maybe 20. So I was having a blast and living the lifestyle a blast. And we were driving really nice cars. Like I had a killer van, and a lot of the other riders had not pretty well off parents who had nice cars. We were driving, um, like once again for the millionth time, we were having the time of our lives.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. What Explain to us, Steve, like at the beginning, how difficult it was to advance because there were so many riders and the money was so good and the fans were coming out to the races and the popularity of the sport was probably at an all-time high. And explain the difficulty it was to be a younger rider and to advance to Division One, like what it took to be, let's say, a D2 rider to qualify and to get into the big time for the money in Division One. Explain the process of that in that day.
You know, in 74, 75, 76, it wasn't as difficult as a few years later because there were not as many Division One riders to fill the programs. Remember, we were riding 5 nights a week. Ventura on Tuesdays, Bakersfield on Wednesdays, Irwindale, which was the premium track, on Thursdays, Costa Mesa on Fridays. Um, and we were one of the boys. Now, from about 76, 77, 78, the difference back then to today, there were 35 riders on any given night that could win the main event, where today there's maybe 7 guys that could win on any given night. There was, Mike Bass, Steve Beck, Rick Woods, Wild Bill Cody, Larry Shaw, the Animal, Jim Fishback, Kelly Moran, Sean Moran, Mark Cherf,
Okay.
Alan Christian, me, uh, Brad Oxley. There were so many guys that could win any night. So Speedway, back in the golden era of Speedway, was so much competition and so much camaraderie, and when the stands were packed, standing room only, and with big money, it was exciting, and with the crowd scream, and let's face it, with Larry Huffman doing the Huffman hop and giving out all these nicknames, was incredible. It was exciting. Just no more than that. Just exciting. You know, uh, Penn Hall. All the writers. I mean, I would go to restaurants or bars, and people would come up to me and say, "Hey, I bet my friend dinner that you're Steve Columbo." It's things like that. It's a crack up. I mean, I would have a date with a girl. I would go to her house to pick her up to take her out on her date. And either her brother or her father would go, "You're Steve Columbo." I go to Speedway. I watch you every Friday night. It's a crack up. They would love it that you're taking their daughter out. It's
Oh, for
Speedway.
sure.
Speedway was special to us, and a lot of guys watching this. I hopefully you can relate to what I'm saying.
The younger writers don't understand what the era was about. That's why I'm glad we can interview writers, star writers like yourself in the glory days of Speedway, because it's something that is different than today a little bit, and people get a little bit insulted when I say things like that because they want to defend today, but people need to understand what the history of Speedway was back in the day, right?
Oh, exactly. I watched this one kid today, Luke Becker. He in our era would have been one of the boys. He's most likely a future world champion. These other probably seven guys that could be one of the boys in our era. There's probably only seven. Um, Not to be disrespectful, but they wouldn't win as much in our era like they are today, because there would be a heck of a lot more competition. I'd like to see them beat the Morans and the Basses and the Woods and the Codys. They wouldn't be beating them like winning as much like they are today. And that's not to be disrespectful because they are good riders, but our era was a little, and they're not riding any faster today than we were in our day. And their bikes today are a heck lot more
Not
expensive.
much.
um, but there's
Yeah,
only
they're powerful. They're powerful.
Yeah, I mean they just have the lay down motors, which on the start just give them a forward thrust. That's the only difference. They just have a forward thrust on the start. Um, but I wish they could experience the thrill of 10,000 people in the stands. I wish they could experience that. That's a shame that they don't get that.
It is. Yeah, I mean, especially like the Fox night. Do you remember the Fox night when the stands were packed?
What are you kidding? I would lay it down in the first corner so I could get dressed and go in the stands. I didn't want to race that
Penhall
night.
said he never wanted to win on Fox night because he
No, I wanted to go in the stands and start meeting girls. Yeah,
Oh.
that's the only
Penhall said that when it was Fox night, he wanted to like make sure he could make the main so he could like get dressed like you
yeah,
and go mingle with the girls.
yeah, that's the only night I didn't want to win. So yeah, he's correct if he
That's
felt
a
the
good.
same way. You know,
Well, that's what he said to me, so I believe him.
yeah. Well, if he said it and I said it, it's true. You know,
It's
I'm I'm
true.
I'm fortunate that I never had any injuries that are long lasting that are affecting me today. Um, it you know we've lost so many special guys, and it's so sad. I really wish they were here today because they were really unique individuals, like I said. Um, so many, and it really puts a perspective on how lucky the ones of us that are still here um, have. At least we have the memories. The one thing that I wish we had in our day that we didn't have that they have today is YouTube. I wish we had YouTube and the internet because we
Yes.
really don't have any film or stuff on us writing like they do today and stuff. I mean, I don't have any film or anything of me writing to look back on that they do today. It's a shame because I wish I could show my kids me riding because they really don't have anything to look at. So that's the one thing that I wish we had that we didn't. Except for Bruce Penhall, he's got a ton of stuff.
I never. He's got a couple of world championships too.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day, all they had is the Super 8 millimeter movies, and my family took a few of those of me racing. My first third division race was when Dennis Segales had his first third division race, and I have a video of me and Dennis smoking my ass out there on the track, and but there was nothing left. I had to convert it to DVD. I told Dennis, I'm going to get you a copy of that DVD of your first third division race when I was racing Dennis. And, we didn't have anything like that. And I never thought about that, but you're totally right, Steve.
Oh boy. Um, God, there's so much. Like when we had team racing, the LA Sprockets, um, it was great. The only thing that I'm going to say all the riders did not like was we only got to go to Costa Mesa once a month because you had to wait your turn to go up against the Eagles. Um, and everybody loved going to Irwindale, which was my track, the Sprockets, which was the premier track to ride. But Costa Mesa was the track with the money. Well, it was all thrown in together, but it had the crowds. Everybody wanted to ride Costa Mesa because it was the premier crowd track. But Irwindale was the riding track. It was a little bit bigger, had a little more dirt. But as far as team racing, that was the only thing that everybody didn't like was only got to go to Costa Mesa once a month when your team rode against them. Um, when I went to England, oh my God, what a difference. I loved riding the tracks over there with decomposed granite tracks. And the slowest guy in England was a national champion, was fast. There was nobody that was slow. Um, and, every for me, I rode my best over there because there was nothing to do. I never got to go out and play around or anything. I always, had to be in good shape uh, because I was in England. I was away from all my family, friends, and the beach and everything. So I was 100% in, my mindset and everything. So that was great. But I was so homesick. It was tough leaving Southern California at 23 years old and going to England where it's gray and rainy every day. Um, Speedway is such a big sport around the world, but not in America. Um, God, Speedway could be such a huge sport here in America if it just was promoted and exposed to the States because it is so exciting. Um, so
Oh, it is.
Speedway could have a lot of potential here.
I think maybe TV would be helpful too if they were to get like good camera angles on the speedway where you get close to the action. You get close to the wheels spinning and close to the crashes and you get kind of close up. Speedway is a little bit boring a long ways away, like long shot, but if you get close to the action, Speedway is second to none.
Speedway's one of those things you got to be there live. You have to experience it live. It just television just doesn't do it justice. You got to have the smell of the oil hitting the dirt. You got to have dirt in the beer.
Those were the good old days for sure, huh?
I think so. And then
Yeah, we
there's
as kids would be when you were racing. I was in the stands holding the tear offs. I jumped
yeah,
over and probably picked up your tear off and was holding it on the front row, getting blasted by the dirt in my face.
yeah. The kids want the tear offs, and oh gosh, what was I just going to say? I just lost my track for a second. Is like I said, the the dirt and the beer, everybody's screaming and yelling. Um, it's like the smell is the thing that I miss the most. This of the the oil total loss system. Um, I
You know, nowadays the oil doesn't. I don't think it smells as good. But before, when you and I were racing back in the day, the smell of that castor oil was almost like a drug. It just filled the air. It was a very beautiful smell.
yeah, I don't think it's a total loss system anymore. I think they recapture it now. It doesn't hit the dirt.
It doesn't go on the dirt anymore. It goes when you finish when you go home at night. You drain the oil and you put new oil in for the next race. So no total loss anymore.
I used to have to put spark plugs in the oil tubes so it didn't leak all over my van.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know what I did. I think I put paper down or something because it leaked all the time, right? Back in
Yeah, all
those
the time.
total loss systems. I I had a JAP and I had a little oil pump and I could actually watch the oil being pumped in the pump and I knew, it would just be total loss after the pump.
Yeah. So
So
Speedway.
yeah, so I just want to ask you a quick question. What was your experience briefly like when you raced for the Los Angeles Sprockets of the National Speedway League, like racing with Bass and Penhall? And who was your teammate when you raced the Speedway League? I don't know.
Well, Bruce was my team partner for a while, and then I was the leader of like Wayne Lewis, Craig Schaefer. Like Bass was the leader with his partner. Bruce then was the leader with his partner. Then I was the leader with my partner. And then Gene Woods was the leader with his partner. We kind of mixed it up. Like I was fantastic at Costa Mesa. I that was my track. Bruce and Mike rode all the tracks good, and Irwindale especially good. I rode Ventura and Costa Mesa, excellent. So we kind of mixed it up on what track we were riding. Mike Conley got hurt early in the season,
Oh, was he on your
and
team, Mike Conley? I didn't know that.
yeah, he was on our team, but he broke his wrist early. Now we finished second in the
Oh,
racing, and it was a freak thing that we finished second. A freak thing. It was the last race, and we were at Bakersfield. And it turned out that the very last heat, we were tied, or we were 1 point ahead of Bakersfield. And the last race was Jeff Sexton and Doug Farrell against Mike Bass and Bruce Penhall. And we were like, they're not going to sweep Bruce and Mike. And wouldn't you know it, is one of the biggest pushed Mike and Bruce all the way out and won, and they just Bruce and Mike got third and fourth, and they won the team racing by
oh,
what I consider a freak race that you would never
uh,
happen, a miracle, and they won the team racing.
well,
They
Doug
earned it.
Farrell and Jeff Sexton were no easy pushover.
Oh,
They earned it.
they earned it. They won the team racing, and that's the way it went. They made a miracle happen.
Yeah, if that race was at Irwindale, you guys would have smoked them.
I like to think so.
Well, Bath
I,
and
I,
Penhall at Irwindale. I was reading some.
I liked our leathers best.
I was reading some. Yeah, you guys had the baby blue leathers with like the white or yellow on it. It was beautiful.
Yeah, with the big old sprocket.
Yeah. I told the people from Bakersfield that the LA Sprocket, I told Gene Woods, I said, Gene, and I told somebody else, I don't know who it was, but I said, I think Bruce Penhall. Yeah, I told Bruce and Gene Woods, I go, the LA Sprockets was my favorite team. I was always rooting for you above all the other teams. And you guys had the coolest team, I thought, and that was my favorite team.
And the coolest track.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I loved Irwindale. That was a fast track, and you could really go. It was one of the. It was probably the biggest track of at that time that you could race, the fastest track probably, and it was probably one of the most fun tracks also.
Oh, absolutely. You know, timing's everything. I am very fortunate. I came into Speedway at the perfect time, the perfect era, with the perfect riders. Uh, SRA in the beginning. Um, I fell in. Everything was perfect when I got into it. It was still new and raw, and it was an infancy still. And
Yeah,
I'm lucky. I, uh, it was a perfect time for me.
yeah,
And I
you
had
did a great job. You were a solid rider.
Thank you for saying that. It means a lot to me to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to tell you something, Steve. The very first time I bought the Speedway, bought it from your buddy Danny Becker, and it's a brand new JP somebody gave him, and then he had a Jawa at the time. He was big time, so he sold it to me for like $800, and then I bought this Jawa at the end of the 75. I mean, the JP at the end of the 75 season, and I didn't know what to do, so I thought, well, I go out to practice, and I went out to OCIR. I believe it was Wednesday nights, and I fell down the first turn. I was so scared to ride a speedway bike. My very first time ever. I mean, I never rode a speedway bike in my life, and I was so scared. I fell down in my first turn, and I said, I'll never do that again. And I never did fall like that again because it was nerves. And then I was like nervous about racing and stuff. I felt kind of awkward, my first time. And then I turned around and there's this guy, number 12, Steve Columbo, just tearing up this practice track. And I was like, God, I want to be like Steve Columbo, like this guy's solid. You're riding like D1 and you're just like turning it on full gas, at the OCIR. And you were practicing, you were the only D1 rider there, which tells me that you're working hard on your skills, as a speedway rider. A lot of the speedway riders, either they don't want to use their equipment or, they're tired or whatever. But you were out there. It was at the end of the 75 season because I raced about three or four races that year, or 3 or 4 weeks, I should say. And you were there during the season, spinning hot laps. And you were my first inspiration my very first night ever riding a speedway bike.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I loved OCIR, and that had everything to do with me advancing in Speedway and learning. I got to learn away from Costa Mesa in front of 10,000 people in third division. I didn't follow my head in front of everybody.
It's fun, right? It's fun.
I had a blast.
Yeah.
I had a
I
blast.
raced tumbleweed. I raced tumbleweed. Do you remember tumbleweed Walton?
Are you kidding? Of course. He was the crowd loved him more than anybody. He was a crowd favorite.
Oh, he was in one of my first Division III races, and I went up to Tumbleweed. He's about 10 times bigger and heavier than me, and I said to Tumbleweed, "Do not crash me or fall on me because I don't want to die."
Yeah, it's a shame he's no longer with us either.
Yeah, it's sad. He was a good friend of mine too. We chatted on Facebook a few times, and he was a humble man and a good man also.
Yes, he was. I've on Facebook I've put
He
up
was
some
a good
pictures.
man,
He's in some
and
of
we
them.
miss. I saw, I saw that with you and uh, Danny Becker and Stunning Nutter and all the old guys.
Yeah, Bill Cody and Bobby Ross and Dave Sims and Doug Farrell. A lot of people. I'm the
Yeah, there's
one
so many.
that kind of reminisced with everybody. I stayed in contact with everybody, and everybody has, stayed in contact with me. A lot of writers have come up here to my house and stuff, and I'm the one that has taken a lot of pictures of everybody. Um, yeah, I'm the one that likes to stay in touch with everybody. I'm that one.
That's great. That's great. Oh, that's super. Yeah, there was a lot of good riders back in that day, and it was countless. And that it was hard to win a main event, like you said earlier, because there's so much competition. And if you want to, let's say even a handicap main event or a scratch main event, but it was pretty like big time if you won a main event because the competition you had the whole crowd of riders that were all like everybody could win the main event that night, pretty much.
Exactly, exactly. And in the
So,
beginning, the trophy was a mug. It was a mug, not a
yeah,
trophy.
I won. No, I won a few of those mugs, and they
Yeah,
had glass at the bottom. The ones I
exactly. That's it. That's it.
is that the same one with the glass
Glass
at the
bottom.
bottom? Is it at a mug, a silver
Yeah,
mug
with
with
glass bottom.
glass?
Yeah, that was the handicap trophy.
I broke the glass.
Ah,
Yeah, I won that one. I won a few of them.
yeah.
Yeah, and the Division 1 handicap trophies. And oh, that's great. Well, I appreciate you for coming on the show, Steve. Is there any last words you'd like to say?
Well, thanks. I'm glad I got to share some of my wealth and knowledge about Speedway, and hopefully, people enjoyed hearing me. Um, Thanks for the opportunity of letting me go back in time and share some of this. I hope everybody enjoyed it.
They're good times, weren't they, Steve? They're good times.
Thank you very much, and I hope everybody's well and happy and doing good in life.
Yeah. Well, life is fleeting and it's short, and that's why we want to enjoy every day and every minute of it. And that's important. But we appreciate you, Steve, really for coming on the show. And I didn't know a lot about you before. I knew you're a writer, but I didn't know much about you. So I really appreciate you sharing your wealth of knowledge with us tonight.
Thank you. That was very nice of you to say.
Yeah, really, you have a wealth. And I did a couple shows on your buddy Guy Watterson, and Guy was quite the character. I don't know if we should get into that, but I really always amazed at his fierceness. He was a hard charger, and he was just a great writer. But maybe we'll do a show on Guy again. I like that guy. So you were good friends with Guy, right?
Oh, very good friends. Yeah, I'd spend the
Yeah.
night at his
We'll
house. He'd
talk
spend
more
the night.
about him later.
Yeah, we'd
He
spend
was
spend
cool.
a lot of time at El
We're gonna
Mirage.
close. He was a fierce rider, wasn't he? Guy, he was fearless.
You know, he had the talent. You know, I mean, you go
Yeah,
back to
yeah, he definitely did.
Stu Morley, Dennis the Mouse Gildehouse, uh, those, Steve Bass and those guys, and he fits in there with those guys. Donnie Cullum was his teammate and stuff. He's a little bit earlier than me. He was a warrior.
Yep, he was. He was awesome. I want to know more about Guy Watterson. He amazes me for some reason. And I did a show on Guy on my YouTube channel, and I just like that guy. I don't know why, but I wish I connected with him when I was writing. He was a little earlier than me as well. But thank you so much for hanging out with us today in the Hive. And Steve, we appreciate it. And tomorrow we're going to have a very good up and coming young writer. He's a young writer, and he's going to be a star writer. He's going to be one of those core star writers in America. He's very talented, and he's going to join us. He's a very likable guy, like Steve Columbo. He's a likable guy, and he's a great writer. And this guy's going to go far in Speedway. He's a current Division 1 star, and that's Alex Martin. He's going to be on our show tomorrow, so if you might want to tune in for that. Alex is a great writer, and we appreciate Steve Columbo and Alex for coming on the show tomorrow. We have about 30 writers and people coming on the show, so you might not want to miss some of the shows because we have a lot of people coming on like Steve Columbo, like Alex Martin. We had Fast Eddie Castro last night. We have a list. We have Larry Huffman coming back on the show for the second time. We have tons of people, celebrities like Steve Columbo. We have Dennis Sagalos coming on the show. We have just so many great speedway and personalities. Warren Reed, the motocross speedway rider. It's just countless of people we have coming on. But if you like the show and if you're interested in the Speedway, please consider subscribing and liking this show with Steve Columbo. It was great. And we appreciate you, Steve. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. And we appreciate you for hanging out with us today in the Hive. And we're going to look forward to seeing you tomorrow night with Alex Martin. Thank you so much. And we're going to see you. Yeah, we're going to see you next time. Thank you.